Good morning. Hello and welcome to the ATRA webinar on Introduction to Programming Part 1. My name is Keith Clark and I am an ATRA Technical Advisor and I'll be your presenter for today. Now, let's begin today's presentation, Introduction to Programming Part 1. This again is going to be a two-part webinar. Today we are going to cover a brief history on the J2534 standard. We're also going to look at terms to know, and then finally we are going to explore navigating the OEM websites. What is J2534? J2534 is a standard that was developed by SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers, in 2004. Basically what it does is it allows us, the aftermarket, to obtain OEM programming and download that programming and then utilize non-OEM hardware to actually upload that information into vehicles to solve shifting and other concerns that may need to be addressed on the powertrain. And again, the J2534 standard covers specifically ECM, PCM, and TCM programming only. Even though there may be some aftermarket suppliers that allow other module programming, the J2534 standard allows for support only for drivetrain related modules. The J1962. This refers to the actual OBD2 connector, as we refer to it in the aftermarket, and it actually specifies the dimensions as well as the pin designations as you see listed on the right-hand side. And this is a standardized format for the automotive applications. A notation to make is there will be some commercial applications which will be considered C-class trucks and higher, 20,000 gross vehicle pound, 20,000 pounds gross vehicle weight and higher, which will have a connector that looks like this, but it will have a different designation. Again, that will be considered a commercial or non-automotive application, and these pin designations will not apply to that. Also note, the unassigned pins are left at the discretion of the OEM for other systems that they might want to include in a diagnostic link connector. When diagnosing these systems, no matter what format is used, pin 16 is always going to be 12 volts positive, and pin 4 is going to be our chassis ground. We always want to verify for a good chassis ground on all occasions. We want to do a voltage drop on this with a key-on engine off or key-on engine running. And we want to make sure that we have 0.1 volts or less. And that's using our voltmeter, red lead into the pin 4. Our black lead is going to go to the battery ground for our reference. And we're going to see what kind of a drop we have at that point. And again, we want to have 0.1 volts or less. This is going to be very critical in allowing us to have a trouble-free programming session. There are 5 major languages or communication protocols that you will encounter. First one is the J1850 pulse width modulated format used by Ford. Other is going to be the J1850 variable pulse width modulated format used by General Motors. Then we have the ISO 9141 used by Chrysler and a lot of the Asian OEM. Then we have the ISO 14230 or the keyword processing 2000 used by most European. And then the ISO 15765, otherwise known as a CAN bus, which is the latest and most popular used presently for both domestic and foreign OEM. It is important to identify what protocol applies to your vehicle, because you'd have to verify that your hardware is going to be able to communicate with these protocols properly. Note, ISO stands for the International Organization of Standards, the largest international group. They're headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. So the rest of the world basically answers to ISO. And the SAE and ISO actually work very closely hand in hand to make sure that there's cross-compatibility both overseas as well as stateside. J1850. Now this is a standard that is most popular in the United States of America. And there's two different speeds as well as two different modulation formats as listed on the slide. We have fixed pulse width modulation and we have variable pulse width modulation. The low speed bus is going to operate at about 10.4 kilobytes per second. High speed is about 4 times that. Now, verifying that the bus lines are working correctly might be necessary in the case we have an issue with communicating with the computers and modules, or in case there's U codes. If this is a situation, we'd want to use either a graphing voltmeter or an oscilloscope to verify that there's going to be correct bus activity at the designated pins based on the protocol that is used on the vehicle. Now, on the J1850 pulse width modulated system, we have a 2-wire standard, and basically we're going to have a bus positive and a bus negative as indicated on the connector below. Bus positive is going to be pin 2, while bus negative is pin 10. It's going to have a 0 to 5 volt range, and the graph that we would expect to see when using an oscilloscope or graphing voltmeter would resemble the one on the lower right. Again, verifying proper signal is might be necessary. J1850 variable pulse width modulated single wire standard indicates that the bus positive is going to be on pin 2 as indicated below. Now this system is going to be a 7 volt system, as you see the modulation on the lower right hand side in the graph. This is what we would expect using a oscilloscope or a digital voltmeter as far as the display. Now note, since we don't have a mirror reflection of like we do on the 2-wire system, the ground is going to be extremely critical in single wire systems because that is our base reference. Now with the ISO 9141-2, the single wire standard, basically the configuration is going to be as listed below. Our data line, otherwise known as our K line, is going to be designated at pin 7. And basically this is going to be a bidirectional signal that's going to occur at this point. So it's going to be a send as well as a receive. So if we have a tool plugged into the diagnostic link connector, we do have the capacity to send as well as receive on the K line. Now the other line listed, the L line, is going to be optional. Basically this is going to be used for waking up and putting to sleep ECUs or TCUs, and it will be used at the manufacturer's discretion. Sometimes during programming or diagnostic processes, the L line may be active. Again, this is going to be a 12 volt system. Ground is very critical, this being a single wire data line. Now with the ISO 14230, or keyword processing 2000, this data protocol is very similar to the ISO 9141 in the fact that we do have a K line and an L line, same designation, pin 7 for the K line and pin 15 for the L line. And we also have a 12 volt system. The main difference is how fast this information is going across the data bus. We have an increase from 12 to 255 bits per command. So we've pretty much gone to an order of hundreds. So this system is extremely fast. It's more sensitive to noise as well. Again, ground is going to be very critical in ensuring that we have a solid ground for a successful programming event. Next, we have the ISO 15765, otherwise known as the CAN bus format. This is the most popular one that's used currently by many of the manufacturers, both foreign and domestic. And as you notice on the lower right-hand side with the graph, we have a CAN high and a CAN low, and the voltages are a lot less varying. As a matter of fact, they're very, very, very low. So you have to make sure that our power as well as our ground are very clean. We make sure that we have a solid ground. These are very sensitive to any discrepancies in voltage. Again, our pin designations for CAN high is 6 and CAN low is pin 14. And these are the waveforms that we'd expect. Now, once we have established what kind of protocol our vehicle has, we can use this information to ensure that our pass-through device is going to be compatible for programming. We will cover hardware requirements in part 2 of the webinar. Navigating the OEM websites. Now, manufacturers simply have to comply with this standard. It's the law of the land, so if they are imported in the United States of America, they have to comply with the standard. Basically, you never want to purchase a subscription before you find out if there's software available for programming your module. Now, a lot of times, many OEM sites will allow you to get onto their website to find out this information, but they don't make it easy. So I am going to navigate you through some of the big three just as an example. Now, in the case that we're not able to get into the OEM website, we do have aftermarket resources like AllData, Mitchell On Demand, ShopKey, and there's a website that you can go to called www.revbase.com, as listed on the slide. And we can actually view information and documents and bulletins that would be relative and relevant for programming needs that we might have for our application or complaint. And there will be reference material either on the website or through these resources so that you can find this out prior to purchasing a subscription. In a worst case scenario, you will have to, in some cases, purchase a subscription to see some OEM specific information. Prior to downloading the OEM software, you want to make sure that the module that you're attempting to program has a need for software to be updated. Now, first of all, you need to access this information. In order to get into there and actually see what level of software you have already written on your modules, if you take just a typical scan tool, doesn't have to be OEM, you want to go into the generic side actually, OBD2 or EOBD generic, Mode 9 section, and once you enter into that area, then you can view the VIN number information as well as the calibration verification numbers and any other program identifiers that might apply to the modules and the drivetrain. Again, this is a very important step to take just so that we can use this information for comparison. Now, getting onto the OEM sites, first we'll look at the Tech Authority site, which is going to cover Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Plymouth, and Eagle. Now, basically, this is going to be a typical MO for most OEM sites where, again, they're not going to make it very easy for you to find their information. There's not going to be a lot of bells and whistles that are going to say, here for the free information. They don't like that 4-letter F word. Okay, so just keep in mind it's going to take some diligence, so that's why I'm walking you through. Now, once we get into the OEM website here, we come to the welcome page, and we don't have to enter anything at all. We don't have to log in, don't have to buy anything, call a telephone number. Go to the left-hand column here, and we're going to click on Online Subscriptions. Again, we don't want to buy anything until we absolutely positively have to. We're going to do some window shopping. We see a product here. It's going to be a 3-day subscription. I just chose that one just to get us a little bit further down the road. And it's going to say TA user 03 day, and it's got a price next to it, of course. They want us to buy it. We don't want to buy it yet, though. We're just looking, taking it for a test drive. We get here, they still want us to buy it, whatever. Let's scroll down a little bit and see what else they offer, of course. Now, when we scroll down, this is when we get to more information here. Then all of a sudden, we see indications of something that might be free. And yes, it is free. We're going to look at flash availability. We have two selections to make. Either if we're using the Chrysler factory tool, or if we have aftermarket J2534 compatible pass-through device. We want to select the J2534. And we make that selection, and it's going to take us to the goal that we're looking for. Very good information at this point. Once we get to this screen, basically everything that the OEM has available to them is available here to us, which is wonderful. It's great. Chrysler really opened up the floodgates, and I applaud them on this level. If we look at the left-hand side, the gray box, we have a whole lot of information of whether we want to use the factory OEM tool, YTech tool, DRB3, whatever. But most of all, we have support for the J2534 application as well, where if we run into programming problems, downloading problems, if we have a Java error or something like that, it walks us through step by step with the documents where the yellow arrow is here, and it provides a lot of troubleshooting so that you don't have to make a phone call unless you get something that isn't covered in the topics in this area. Now, with that in mind, we can go a little bit further because we still didn't find what we need. Now, for the free stuff that's going to help us out to verify if there is programming available for our vehicle application, we're going to see this little notation on the bottom. It's going to be a PDF file that we're going to need to click on. Now, of course, it's a PDF file. We can download it. We can print it. We don't want to do that. We want to look at this because this gets updated regularly. As a matter of fact, when I assemble this webinar, with programming being a moving target, this was, if you look at the date, this is February 19th, 2016. So basically, I updated this, and I know that they've probably updated it since then. So just to keep that in mind, a lot of times if you go on old information, there might be a new download for your vehicle that might have been applied in the time that you printed off the document versus when you actually are going to program. So now, once we click on that link, it brings us to this PDF document. Now, this is several hundreds of pages. We got about 150 pages on this one, I believe. So with that in mind, we want to search this document to find our application, which is going to be on the left-hand side. And they've got numerous applications, and they try to keep them pretty much in make model year order. So, but it does jump around a little bit, but you can get through it pretty easily. And there are search functions that you can use to get you through a PDF document, a PDF search. But once we locate our vehicle and application, as a matter of fact, I used a 2005 Dodge Charger for an example here. And if we click on that, we see that there's programming that is available for this vehicle. Now, things to keep in mind here is they'll tell you what type of module is going to be programmed. In this case, it's a TCM. They give you the hard part number, which is the actual module part number. And all of these part numbers that are listed as old, all of these are valid numbers unless there's a recall or TSB that says we need to change this module out. Okay, so basically any programming that comes through as being valid for calibration for the 2005 Dodge Charger can be programmed onto these modules. And then they give you the latest hardware update, which you don't have to do. You don't have to purchase the latest and greatest hardware, again, unless you're advised to do so through technical service bulletins or recall information. Okay, and the technical service bulletin searches can be done just by entering these numbers in. You can even enter these in on Google, and a lot of these TSBs will come up directly on Google. So that's a wonderful tool to invoke because some of these you have to go into the website and purchase a subscription to actually obtain some of these technical service bulletins, and that's mostly the very latest ones. Now, once we've established that there is programming available, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to look at the module and make sure, especially if it looks like somebody's been messing with the module, if they put their mitts on it or there's yellow paint on it like it came from a junkyard, we can match those numbers up to see versus the list that we have from that PDF file, if it is a valid module that can be programmed and work with this application. Now, just a note, there are many modules that look like this and that will plug in, but they might not function. As a matter of fact, you will be able to program some of them, and they'll take the program and it'll say successfully completed, but they won't work because the module part number is not for that application. So again, that's a very good check to make, especially if you get the vehicle in and somebody had their mitts on it prior to you. Here's service bulletin information that will be applicable, and it'll explain in great detail what the reflash is going to be doing that's available for this vehicle. Again, you want to look at all the bulletins that are related to your application, because different reflash segments have different purposes. In this case, this flash is going to cure a shift hesitation during wide open throttle for this particular application. So if that's the customer complaint, bingo, we've got a match. We're going to go to the site, we're going to download the programming, and we're going to start the process from that point. Now, in the case of some Chrysler applications from 1998 to 2007, it might be necessary to initialize the powertrain control module if the powertrain control module was replaced or reprogrammed. Now, in this event, you would have to either take it to the dealership, which, you know, they'll do it for a fee, of course, or you can lease a DRB3 tool by calling the Mopar direct number, which would be a 1-800 number, or Controller Technologies. They have the same service available. Now, in this case, by going through the dealer or this service, what you will get is an up-to-date DRB3. In other words, the firmware or the base level software that's required to drive this program in the DRB3 will be updated to the latest, most current programming. Now, if you go on eBay, you might find some very good deals on DRB3 tools, okay? It's not advisable to purchase anything like that because there are DRB3 tools that are not upgradable or updatable. So buyer beware. You can do it, you can try it, but you need to do your homework if you plan on going in that direction. My recommendation, if you do fall in this category, best way to do it is just lease the tool for whatever fee they have. And what you need to do is actually refer to technical service bulletin at the bottom of this page that will advise you of what vehicles this applies to. So that information is going to be available on that document. Navigating the Ford Mercury Lincoln website, which is going to be the motorcraftservice.com website. This is going to take you to the main page, much in the same way as Chrysler has. And by coming into the main page, of course, they want you to buy stuff, but they're a little bit more subtle about it. Your reprogramming initialization is where we want to go first. So if we click on that selection, that's going to take us to this page, which, of course, they have a whole lot of information regarding Ford module programming. And then as we read through all the information, because it's a good thing to go ahead and read through this information on the top because it tells you a lot about related systems. And then finally, to look for the calibration information, we go down towards the bottom, almost at the bottom. It's highlighted in red. We've got the latest calibration information. We're going to click on that link. And that's going to take us to the upper left-hand corner here, where it's going to be the latest calibration information. We're going to search calibration by vehicle and model year and engine. And we click on that link, and it's going to take us to the lower right, where we're going to be prompted to enter the vehicle information, the model year, as well as the engine size. And then we submit the form. Now, for a demonstration purpose on this section, I entered in a Lincoln LS model year 2004 with a 3.9 liter engine. Now, basically, what's going to happen at this point, we're going to have, much like Chrysler, a list of the hard parts or the actual computer module numbers, part numbers that are going to be valid for this vehicle application. Again, same situation. Ford, even more so. Now, these things can plug and play. Things will start working. You'll get a check engine light a lot of times for, in the case of a mismatch, but it might run and might work just fine, but you'll have a check engine light that won't go away because the computer isn't compatible with the drivetrain. So with that in mind, again, we have our part numbers, the module type. In this case, we're dealing with a PCM, and this is going to have a catchword, which is like a 4-character code that's going to be a real good one-time glance type situation. And we want to match this information, because if this information is not does not coincide with what's in the vehicle, then we have a problem right there. And then the last column, it's going to show our actual software that's going to be current for this application. So if our software level is lower than that, then basically we're going to have software that we're going to want to download from the website and upload onto our module. Again, we're going to want to use mode 9 in our OBD2 generic mode on our scan tool to see what level of software we have in our module. So again, the catchwords, if we see the catchwords over on the right-hand side, this 4-digit 4-character code, and if the catchword does not match as well as the part number, then we've got a problem. And we've got a problem with the matching up, because a lot of times junkyards, they will pull something out that looks close and it might almost work. So just to keep in mind, so we don't have a headache, especially in the case of Ford applications. We don't want to overlook this one detail, especially if somebody's visited this before we did. Now, once we've determined that we have software that we need to download or upload onto our module, then basically we're going to return to the reprogramming and initialization screen. We're going to scroll to the bottom of the page, and we're going to hit purchase. And we're going to follow prompts for downloading that software from there. Again, this is going to be at the lower right-hand corner of the reprogramming and the initialization screen. And at that point, we are ready and set to go. Now, General Motors, there's several ways to get into the General Motors actual programming website. Now, the actual programming website for General Motors is very bland and dry, and and it doesn't offer much input or any extra tools. I chose the AC Delco Tech Connect website because it gives you a more interactive mode to get into the website, and it offers more tools so that you can actually have access to more support before you actually get into the programming and purchasing and selection mode, because a lot of times it can be intimidating. So again, I recommend to go into this website, and if we click on this link, almost in the center of the page, you'll see a toolbox that'll have nice little selections. And if we go directly to the TIS to Web area, which is going to be the GM website, it's going to take you to a preview and a tool page that you can use prior to actually getting your software. Now, this is very good and it's very informative, so I really encourage you to explore this on your own time. Again, this is free, that four-letter F word. So this is a wonderful thing that GM has done for us. Now, as far as once you click on the toolbox, the TIS2Web selection in the toolbox, it takes you to this page, and it's dedicated to TIS2Web programming. So there's a lot of information. We got an overview, program benefits, etc., etc. And then in our tool corner, it allows us to actually go in and view the tutorials for TIS2Web. So we get a lot of information at our fingertips, so it can take the edge off of the intimidation of going in and programming these vehicles. Then, of course, what we're in here for, we're looking up information on vehicle calibrations. And it spells it out pretty accurately. And it says no charge. They don't want to use that four-letter F word, of course. So if we click on that link, then it brings us to the drab and dry screen that all the other links for General Motors TIS2Web programming will take you to. And at this point, we can either use our vehicle identification to enter in on the Get Calibration ID, or we can enter our Mode 9 information in from OBD2 Generic or EOBD, and we can get our calibration verification number from there. And at that point, we can match what we have in our vehicle computer to what is available for programming on the website. Now, again, we're going to search through the databases as well, again, aftermarket databases as well as the OEM database for the pertinent programming or bulletins and documentation that would be pertinent to our application. Now, once we verify that there is programming available for our application, we want to purchase a subscription. Now, looking at the subscription screen, there's a lot of selections that can be misleading here. So you want to be very careful and read and make sure that you have programming available on your package. You want to have service programming available. So no matter what level you get, make sure it says service programming package. So it has to say at least that. So just make sure that you read and read and read and click before you subscribe and pay. Now finally, once programming information is located, it can be downloaded on your laptop, on your desktop, or on a compatible scan tool. Now in part 2, we're going to discuss the hardware as well as the rest of the process. Now there is one website I'm going to refer you to, and it's going to be listed below here, www.nastef.org. Now this is the enforcement leg of the the J2534 protocol. Basically, if there's any issues or any problems, this organization, which is a nonprofit, they will research, they will actually be a liaison on your behalf to work towards a resolution for programming issues. Because again, any vehicle that is at least sold in the United States of America has to be in compliance with this. There has to be programming available through the OEM, downloadable by the aftermarket, compatible with aftermarket hardware. If all those criteria are not met, then they are in violation, and they can have very serious ramifications if they don't make positive efforts to correct this and allow you to do allow us to do what we need to do in programming. And again, one other thing I do want to add as far as on the support side as well that I did not make a notation on, the Ford system does offer a strong support network as well, and it's under the Ford IDS section. That's Ida David Sam section in the on the OEM website. So again, they offer very comprehensive support Of course, there's numerous other OEM websites. Again, if you go on the NASTF website, they also go into the OEM supports that are available as well. So again, reading is going to be fundamental when it comes to programming. And the more you read, the more you'll find out. The more you find out, the easier program is going to be. Now, it's going to eventually be as easy as building a 4L60E, or maybe in your part of the woods, what is it going to be? A ZF. Again, thank you very much for attending our webinar today, and have a wonderful and prosperous day. Take care. Bye.